Well, it's time to review the final race of the round of 12, and there's a lot of other shit to talk about. Buckle up, this is going to be a packed show. This is The Fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of The Fuel. Today we are going to be reviewing the 2019 Hollywood Casino 400 at the Kansas Speedway. The 32nd race of the 2019 season. I don't know about all of you, but I'm about ready for this season to be over. There's one thing that's for damn certain. These NASCAR seasons can be a real grind. I mean, it's pretty much 40 races that we're watching throughout the course of the season now. I mean, when you count the 36 points races, the shootout, the duels, the All-Star Open, and the All-Star race. That's 41 total races during the NASCAR season. That's just way too many freaking races. But we are closing in on the end of it, thankfully. We have just 4 races remaining in the 2019 season. And we saw a very weird Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas. My first impressions on it, it was definitely not as good as the one back in May. That's for damn sure. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the daytime as opposed to the nighttime, which was what we saw in the May edition. But this race was definitely not as good as the May edition. I mean, it wasn't total garbage. I mean, we did see some spots where we saw some good racing, but I mean, this race had large pockets of this race where it just seemed like there was just nothing going on. So, yeah, I mean, it was just a race, really. But before we get into all the particulars of the race, we have a lot of shit to go over. Lots of news that I haven't been able to get to as of late. But we're going to do it right now. So let's do the news of the week. Alright, so starting with the news of the week. A lot of silly season shit's been going down. Especially in the last month or two. First, let's start over in IndyCar. Even though the IndyCar season is over. But we do have a bit of news from Ganassi Racing. They are expanding back to 3 teams in 2020. They're going to be keeping Scott Dixon, of course. They're also going to be keeping the Rookie of the Year, Felix Rosenqvist. And they're going to be bringing a 3rd team on board, a 3rd full-time team. And the guy that they have tabbed to drive that car is Marcus Ericsson. Yep, he's going to be driving the number 8 car for Chip Ganassi Racing. So, I mean, Ericsson had some flashes of brilliance at times in 2019, but I mean, when he just seemed kind of there. That was really all that it was. I mean, and of course he was driving for Schmidt-Peterson last year. Of course, they're now going to be affiliated with McLaren. But now with Marcus Ericsson going to Chip Ganassi, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Schmidt-Peterson and what they do to fill the hole that was left by Marcus Ericsson. Of course, I think they're going to keep James Hinchcliffe on board, but it'll be interesting to see who they tab as his teammate for next year. But congratulations to Marcus Ericsson. I mean, that is quite the upgrade. But now the thing is, he's got to deliver now, because he's driving for one of the best teams in IndyCar. So, and one of your teammates is one of the best of all time. So, you better step it up a notch. That's all I gotta say for that. But getting on to the NASCAR side of things, as far as silly season is concerned, this dropped on October the 15th. Which was about a week ago. Ross Chastain, the Watermelon Man. Of course, he dropped down into the Truck Series. announced his intentions to run full-time in the Truck Series for the 2019 season. Well, for the championship anyway. And regardless of whether or not he wins the truck title this year, he has been signed to a full-time deal with Kaulig Racing, the team that he took to victory lane at Daytona in July. So Ross Chastain is working his way back up the ranks and back into the Xfinity Series full-time, where he should have been this year with Chip Ganassi Racing before that whole sponsor deal went down. But good for Ross Chastain. He's being a little bit aggressive, maybe a bit too aggressive, but hey, good for him. He's been working hard to try to get back up into a solid ride. And while Kaulig Racing is not exactly top tier, they are pretty solid in the Xfinity Series. So good for him, and hopefully he'll be able to contend for an Xfinity title next year. But here's one of the bits that that certainly got my attention. The ride swap between Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Chris Buescher. And a bit of a shocking news development, which I wanted to talk about but didn't get a chance to. Roush Fenway Racing dumped Ricky Stenhouse Jr. from their 2020 driver lineup, which shocked the hell out of me because it was only like a month or two before where they had signed a 2-year contract extension with Stenhouse. And then all of a sudden, they just drop him right out of the blue after Richmond. Of course, that's probably when they saw, after he wrecked the leader. And of course, he didn't make the playoff and his teammate did. So I think Roush Fenway was like, yeah, I think we fucked up on that one. So they decided to dump him for Chris Buescher, who was in talks to re-sign with the 37 team, but JTG Daugherty was kind of lagging behind a little bit as far as the contract talks, and basically Roush Fenway Racing still had a little bit of a hold on Chris Buescher, I guess you could say, and wanted him to come back to their team to drive the 17 car. So it'll be interesting to see how the 17 car performs next year with Chris Buescher behind the wheel. Interesting little fun fact, and this is something that I didn't know. Chris Buescher is the 2015 Xfinity champion. Of course, that was after which, I decided to fuck off from NASCAR for a couple of years because of, Talladega that year. So I didn't even know that Chris Buescher was the 2015 Xfinity champion. So, and he did it with Roush Fenway. So now he's going to be driving their 17 car. I mean, I don't know if it's much of an upgrade from JTG to Roush, but Newman had some pretty solid runs in that 6 car this year and damn near won Talladega. So, Buescher could do some things in that 17 car. And then on October the 16th, JTG signs Ricky Stenhouse to their team. So he'll be driving the 37 car next year and will be a teammate to Ryan Preece, who re-signed with them as well. This silly season has been pretty fucking crazy, to say the least. But then before we get back into the silly season stuff a little bit, some weird deals happened between both the teams in question that I just talked about, Kaulig Racing and JTG. Apparently, before the Kansas race, the Kaulig Racing hauler was involved in an accident on the way to the Kansas Speedway. Let me take a look at this real quick. So Kaulig Racing announced Wednesday night the hauler for its number 10 team was involved in an accident on the way to Kansas Speedway for Saturday's Xfinity Series race. Team President Chris Rice said in a statement released on social media that Kaulig's 2 drivers for the hauler were alert and had been transported to a hospital for evaluation. According to 13 WLOS, the accident occurred around 5 p.m. Eastern, and a state trooper said the truck's driver and passenger were taken to Mission Hospital by ambulance with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. According to Told Fox Carolina, the North Carolina Highway Patrol said the hauler was traveling westbound on I-40 in McDowell County when it went off the right side of the road near mile marker 93 and went through a guardrail and down an embankment before stopping in the woods. And then there was an update afterwards. Cullick Racing announced Thursday morning its hauler drivers had been released from the hospital and were recovering at home. It said the team had been working diligently through the night to prepare an additional primary for Kansas with help from our technical alliance partners at Richard Childress Racing. Thursday afternoon, the team confirmed that RCR's number 21 Xfinity Series hauler is transporting Chastain's new primary and backup cars to Kansas, where it is expected to arrive around 8 a.m. Monday. So, not only was this hauler involved in an accident, but on top of that, because of this accident, it basically wrecked both of their backup and primary cars. So, that kind of sucks. And thankfully, these guys were okay, because that's a pretty scary accident, to say the least. And if that wasn't enough what the fuckery, JTG Daughtery Racing released a statement on October the 17th that said on their way to Kansas Speedway, the number 47 hauler experienced a fire. Both truck drivers are okay, and they were assessing the damage to their trailer and race cars, and we'll have more information as it becomes available. 2 hauler incidents in less than 24 hours. That's absolutely insane. Like, you couldn't make this shit up if you tried. On a sadder note, it was reported on October the 17th, which was Friday, I'm going to say. No, it was Thursday. A former NASCAR Truck Series owner was found dead in the Ohio River on Tuesday night. The body of former NASCAR truck owner Lonnie Troxell was retrieved Tuesday night from the Ohio River near Louisville, Kentucky. According to the Louisville Courier-Journal, he was 68 years old. The Jefferson County Coroner's Office stated that Troxell's body was found floating in the river. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Cause of death will be determined pending an autopsy. Troxell was a owner in what was then the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series from 2000 to 2005. His team fielded several drivers over the 75 races it ran. The team's best finish was 15th, with driver Wayne Edwards in the 2004 season opening race at Daytona International Speedway. So kind of a sad deal there. But getting back into silly season news, Stewart-Haas Racing has announced that it will extend Clint Bowyer's contract for one more season into the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series season. My question is why? Because you got a guy like Cole Custer who's tearing it up in the Xfinity Series, and you know for damn sure that Christopher Bell's coming up, and of course he was confirmed to be driving the 95 next year. You have what the fuck's his name? Damn it. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired. Shit. Guy who drives for RCR. God damn it. I'm trying to remember what it was. Tyler Reddick. There we go. I apologize. I'm a little bit exhausted. I got off work a little while ago, so I'm a little bit tired and my brain's a little bit fried. But yeah, you have Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell coming up to Cup next year. Reddick's going to be driving the 8 car for RCR, and you got Christopher Bell driving for the 95 team, Levine Family Racing. So you have a guy in Cole Custer who's clearly ready to move up to the Cup Series, and yet you're going to re-sign Clint Bowyer. I don't know. It just doesn't really make much sense to me. I mean, yeah, he had the 2 wins in 2000. I think it was either 17 or 18. But 2019 has just not been a good year for him. And he's over 40 years old at this point. And he may be looking at retirement sometime in the near future. Of course, they haven't announced any extensions for Daniel Suarez yet, so that might still be up in the air as well. But Stewart-Haas needs to be thinking about bringing Cole Custer up into one of their cars. Obviously, Harvick's not going anywhere. I mean, duh. And they also re-signed Eric Almirola back to the 10 car for next year. So really, the 41 car is the only one that's still in question. And, I mean, let's be honest here, guys. Daniel Suarez, I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but, I mean, he's been in good equipment for the last 2-3 years. And he's done jack shit. He's missed the playoffs all 3 years. He's still yet to win a race. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I think obviously being brought up to the Cup Series a little bit too soon might have had a little bit to do with it. I mean, he had to be basically thrust into the 19 car after Carl Edwards' sudden retirement. But he's had 3 full seasons to mature as a driver, and he's been in some damn good cars. I mean, he drove the 19 car. A lot of people thought, well, you know, the 19 team wasn't really that good. Oh yeah? Then why has Truex won 6 times this year? Seems like a good team to me. You know, and then he's over to the 41 car, which Kurt Busch showed that is a race-winning car. And he's done jack shit. So, I mean, if I was Stewart-Haas, I'd be thinking about dumping Suarez for Cole Custer. Because Custer is tearing it up. Tyler Reddick's tearing it up. Christopher Bell's tearing it up. Those 2 of those guys are already going to be known to be coming up to Cup for decent teams. I mean, Cole Custer being put into that 41 car, I mean, I think he'd have the biggest advantage out of all of them right now. So, something to think about. And then in a little bit of an injury report, this was a little bit surprising. Kyle Larson, after the crash at Talladega, which he was involved in a big accident after Alex Bowman tried to block Logano and spun out in front of the field, and Kyle Larson was one of those guys collected. Apparently, he took a much harder hit than anticipated because he had some injured ribs in what he described as probably the hardest hit he'd ever had. He did say he was going to run the full distance at Kansas, which he did. He said that he hasn't had an x-ray. He doesn't think he broke his ribs though, but they were hurting enough to require some icing after the 2 Friday practices. He said it definitely hurts to sneeze and cough, and when he's in the seat it's tender. But and he was wearing one of them protective vests around his ribs. He did say they were probably not broken, so he probably bruised them. But I've never experienced having anything with my ribs at all in my life, whether they be bruised or broken. But from what I've heard, bruising or breaking your ribs is not a fun thing. I mean, because you move even the slightest little bit, it can cause you a lot of extreme pain. But he was able to get in the car and race, so they're probably not broken. They're probably bruised, though. He probably just needed to take it a little bit easy. I mean, he was already through to the round of 8 anyways, so he didn't really need to take any unnecessary risks at Kansas. So even though he was running away with it early on, but then kind of fell back. And then one last thing before we get to the next segment. Apparently, about 12 hours ago, apparently there were some reports of tornadic storms moving through Texas, in particular the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There were some reports that those storms might have been heading towards Texas Motor Speedway, but Bob Pockris, who is a reporter on motorsports, he said he checked in with Texas Motor Speedway, and the track reports no damage from the storms in the area last night. So that's good, especially considering that the Texas race is literally a week and a half away. So the last thing they needed was for the track to be damaged, literally like 13 days before, the playoff race at Texas. So that was pretty crazy to see. Now let's kind of talk about the Xfinity race at Kansas for a minute because it's going to lead into my next segment. At the end of that race, Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe, excuse me. Not Ryan Briscoe, not the IndyCar driver, but Chase Briscoe, were fighting hard for the lead when the lap car of Garrett Smithley came up in front of them off of turn 4 and basically started a wreck between the two leaders, which basically took them out of contention for the win, which led to Brandon Jones getting his first career win. And there were a lot of people that were not too happy with Garrett Smithley, and even though he did own up to it, yeah, he deserves to have a lot of criticism leveled at him because he was 3 laps down, and I've already made it well known that my tolerance for lap cars affecting the outcome of a race is below ground zero. I can't stand that shit. You know, it's a little thing called etiquette, and besides the fact that he was 3 laps down, you know, I mean, you gotta have a little bit more common sense than that. Well, apparently, heading into our next segment now, there was somebody who got so fucking butthurt that he basically went on Twitter and basically made himself look like a total ass clown. So let's talk about that. This is our dumbass of the week. You know, I look at this tweet right now and it's just like, God, does this guy not have any like spatial awareness, like at all? I mean, I'm just looking at this and it's just like, it's one of them facepalm worthy moments. So evidently, while Garrett Smithley is basically being criticized, you know, for basically causing, you know, getting in the way of the leaders, and apparently this was not the only time. This was apparently the second time in less than a month that he's done it. So it's like, I mean, you gotta have more spatial awareness than that. Well, Tommy Joe Martins put a tweet out, and let's read this together, shall we? It should come up on your screen in a moment here. He says, "Shut up," in all caps. "I'm so sick of try-hard commenters and know-it-all racers using lap car incidents to rip drivers or prove how much better they'd be if they had a NASCAR chance. Garrett Smithley is good. He made a mistake. He owned it. Quit projecting your BS onto midfield competitors."
Oh my God. I don't know if I can let that slide.
Wow. That is a mountain of salt if I've ever fucking seen it. Let's kind of talk about, I'm going to start right now with the first part of this. He says, "I'm so sick of try-hard commenters and know-it-all racers using lap car incidents to rip drivers or prove how much better they'd be if they had a NASCAR chance." Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I have a fucking mouth and an opinion and I like to use it. Okay? Here's the thing, Tommy Joe Martins, you dumb fuck. You dumbass. You prick-ass bastard.
This guy is a fucking idiot fuck.
Here's the thing. I have ripped so many drivers over the past couple years for doing the same kind of shit that Garrett Smithley has done. I mean, and I have ripped some top-notch drivers that have done that shit in the past. So don't you fucking think that I'm not going to do it to the lower tier drivers either. They're just as responsible for having spatial awareness as the top tier drivers are. So don't you fucking come at me and say, "Oh, well, I'm sick of try-hard commenters and know-it-all racers." Shut the fuck up. We're allowed to have an opinion and we're allowed to criticize a driver if he fucks up. And let's be completely honest here, Tommy Joe. Garrett Smithley fucked up. Okay? He was 3 laps down. Okay? 3 fucking laps down. He should have seen in his fucking mirror that the leaders were coming. And common sense would tell you at the end of a race, if you're multiple laps down and you're nowhere in contention, you get the fuck out of the way. Did he do that? Fuck no. you know? And that's without even going into the fact that not only was that a race-altering incident that he basically caused, here's what makes it even worse. It was two championship contenders, Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell, who are contending for the championship. Getting into that wreck that he caused may have had severe championship implications. Because with a victory, one of those two guys would have been locked into the championship four. Now they're still in the danger zone. Now Christopher Bell, I think he's still the point leader at this point. But it still doesn't change the fact that he's in the danger zone. I mean, hell, in the Kansas race that we're going to be talking about here in a minute, Brad Keselowski had a 20-point advantage on, the cut line. And he missed the playoff, and he missed the round of 8 by 3 points. So, you need to realize that people are going to have an opinion. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. And yeah, I am going to be critical of certain drivers for, doing stupid shit, but I do that for everybody. Doesn't matter who the fuck they are. Doesn't matter what their alliance is. Doesn't matter what state they're from. Doesn't matter what the fuck the color of their skin is. Doesn't matter what their gender is. None of that shit matters. If you fuck up, I will call you out on it. And I will criticize you for it. If you do great shit in a race, I will praise you for it. That just comes with the territory, Tommy Joe, but apparently you're just that fucking ignorant that you can't see out of both eyes. And then let's look at the second part of this tweet. He says, Garrett Smithley is good. Oh, really? Let's put that to the test, shall we? Garrett Smithley. Let's take a look at his career stats. All right. NASCAR Xfinity Series career. He's run 129 races over 5 years. 129 races. He has a grand total of 4 top 10s in the Xfinity Series. With a career best points finish of 18. Like, I'm confused. What makes you think this guy is any good? You might say, well, he's in mid-tier equipment. Yeah, so is Ross Chastain. And look what he's doing with it. It's no fucking excuse. Okay, and you say, this guy is good. Okay, then I got a question for you. What is his accomplishments? What does his racing resume entail? It says that he raced legend cars, but I don't see anything that says that he won in Legends cars. I don't see anything that see him wins in late models. I don't see any track championships to his credit. I don't see jack shit. He has 4 career top 10s in the Xfinity Series. 3 of them were at Daytona and Talladega, with the best finish of 5th in 2018, driving the 0 car. Garrett Smithley is good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's in mid-tier equipment, and he's basically garbage, whereas Ross Chastain's in mid-tier equipment and he's turning it into gold. And you're not exactly one to talk, Tommy Joe, because why would I trust someone whose career stats is just as garbage? Okay, let's take a look at your career stats. Your Xfinity Series career, 56 races run over 4 years. No top 10s. With a best finish of 31st in the point standings. Like, holy shit. You know, and I'm looking at your accomplishments and I'm not seeing shit. So, why the fuck should I trust anything you have to say? You know, I realize I'm just a fucking asshole with a microphone, but what the fuck are you? What have you accomplished in motorsports, huh? I mean, this tweet is fucking stupid. And then he puts out another tweet, and this one's another gem. He says, "What's the point? Race your guts out all day to finish 20th in a 27th place car, and best case scenario is nobody cares. Worst case, you're a clown that doesn't deserve to be there. Garrett's driven for years, and the most coverage he's had is 2 incidents with leaders. That's trash." Yeah, Tommy Joe, here's the thing. The most coverage he's had is with the 2 incidents because he's not a front runner. Like, seriously, are you this fucking dense? Like, of course nobody's gonna fucking care about a guy running at the back of the pack. Nobody's gonna give a shit. What the fuck do you expect? Not to mention the fact that this guy doesn't have anything on his resume to suggest that he's going to be a top tier driver. I mean, and you look, again, Ross Chastain, he's in mid-tier equipment. He's not at the top level of equipment in the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series. And look at the fucking wins he's bringing in. What the fuck have you done? What the fuck has Garrett Smithley done? I'll tell you what both of you have done. Jack fucking shit! See, you're no different than any of the other NASCAR pundits and NASCAR experts that bitch and fucking moan about us having an opinion. Well, guess what? Fuck yourself. I'm about sick and fucking tired of people like you and people in the fucking motorsports industry, you know, looking down on us like, oh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Fuck you. I've been watching motorsports for damn near 25 years. I think I know what the fuck I'm talking about. So you can take that and stick it straight up your fucking ass. You no talent fuck.
You guys are a bunch of fucks.
So there you go. Tommy Joe Martin's my dumbass of the week. Fucking stupid. Alright, well, now that I've got that off my chest, let's go ahead and run through this review. Let's do it. So, 2019 Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas. Let's get this thing started. Stage 1 and 2 is 80 laps. Stage 3, 107 laps in a 267 lap race. Bit of a weird front row. Daniel Hemrick started from the pole. His first career pole. He's not even going to be at the 8 car next year. And I think David Reagan started beside him, and he's retiring at the end of the year. Pretty crazy. So, this was a pretty crazy start to the race. One of the good spots to this race. Hemrick leads lap number 1. There was 3 wide all the way through the field. Ryan Blaney and Kez start chasing down Hemrick for the race lead. Excuse me. The 22 and 4 trying to come towards the front after having to start at the rear of the field. Larson takes the lead from Hemrick on the outside with a nice move. So we have our first pure lead change on lap 5. Keselowski gets underneath of Larson off turn 4 for the lead, and he takes it on lap 7, but then Kyle Larson takes it right back 2 laps later on lap 9. So we have 3 pure lead changes right off the bat in 10 laps. So I'm thinking to myself, damn, this is a pretty good start to the race. The rest of this race, not so much. But at this point, Larson, Kez, and Blaney were fighting hard for the lead 10 laps in. And I thought that was awesome sauce. Alex Bowman got way loose in turn 2, but somehow hangs on to it. But he also got some damage somehow in that, which affected his handling. In fact, both Logano and Bowman had minor damage after contact on track. Ryan Newman had to make an emergency pit stop for a flat tire after contact. Eric Jones and Kyle Busch start coming towards the top 5. Daniel Suarez up to 3rd on lap 25. This was actually one of his better runs of the year. We have a great battle for 4th between Eric Jones, Blaney, and Kyle Busch. Kyle Larson gets out to a 5.5 second lead on lap 34. Daniel Suarez gets up to 2nd by Keselowski, but at this point he's 7.5 seconds behind Larson. So this was the point where the race really started to go eh. Logano has a loose wheel on the right front, and he has to make an emergency stop. Fortunately, green flag stops were not that far away, so it didn't affect him all that much. Kez kicks off those green flag pit stops on lap 41. Larson pits from the lead on lap 48, and Larson cycles back with the lead on lap 59. Truex gets by Elliott for the 4th position. Kyle Busch has caught Suarez for 2nd on lap 67, and he gets around him on lap 69. Then we have our first caution on lap 74. Ryan Newman washes up into his teammate off turn 4, Ricky Stenhouse, basically gets turned into the outside wall, and that pretty much ends his day. A lot of cars come in for service. Kyle Busch wins the race off pit road, but Kyle Larson loses 8 spots, so his pit crew didn't really do a good job. Blaney, Boyer, Logano, and Stenhouse stay out. And this was actually a pivotal moment for Logano, considering where the final standings are as far as the round of 8 is concerned. So Blaney leads on the restart. We have 5 wide for the lead down the front stretch, or the back stretch, excuse me. Give me 1 second here. I want to try to find... this real quick because, you know, this was fucking crazy. I'm pretty sure NASCAR has it on their Twitter, because this 5 wide moment was insane. I want to see who all went 5 wide. Probably not going to find it. Oh well, whatever. But so yeah, we had 5 wide down the backstretch, and Logano managed to get out with the race lead, and he actually ends up winning stage 1. Those 10 points would actually be beneficial for the end of this race, because those 10 points basically saved his playoff, and I'll show you why when we get to that point. It's actually kind of insane. And Chase Elliott's victory at Charlotte was pretty pivotal too. And again, I'll show you why when we get to that point. So the cars that stayed out come in on the stage break. We get to stage number 2. Chase Elliott leads the start of stage number 2. Suarez gets pushed out to the lead on the restart. We have lots of battles at the mid portion of the top 10. Truex gets by Suarez down the backstretch for the race lead for our 4th pure lead change on lap 93. Elliott gets by Suarez for 2nd. Larson starts trying to come back towards the front after finishing outside the top 10 in stage 1. Basically lost a lot of position on pit road, and there were several drivers that came in under the caution. Jimmy Johnson with an unscheduled pit stop after scraping the wall. Probably had a cut tire after that. We've seen that a lot this year, where once you scrape the wall or bounce off the wall, more often than not, you're going to have a tire going down. So we've seen that more often than not. Hamlin gets by Suarez for 3rd, and then Jones by Suarez for 4th. Caution number 2 comes out on lap 115 when Kyle Larson gets sick of the 66 of Joey Gase getting in his way and spins him off turn 4. That's kind of funny. Everyone comes in for service, and Truex wins the race off pit road, and Kyle Larson gets penalized for an uncontrolled tire. So that's twice now that his pit crew has basically fucked him up. It's a good thing he's already through to the round of 8, but they need to clean up that shit, or they're not going to be competing for the championship at Homestead, which would suck for them because Larson's pretty damn good at Homestead. Kyle Busch was having some throttle issues at this point in the race as well. He was having stuck throttle, so they had to get that fixed under this caution. Truex leads on the restart. Got 4 wide down the backstretch. Hamlin starts challenging Truex for the lead, and they're actually side by side for multiple laps. But then Hamlin finally gets around him for a 5th pure lead change on lap 126. And that is basically the last we see of that. Denny Hamlin basically gets out in front right here and never really relinquishes the lead again. The only time he does relinquish it is on green flag pit stops, but nobody's ever able to get back around him for the rest of this race. And he led more than half of this race. So Ryan Blaney gets by Truex for second on lap 140. And I noticed that this race seems to have patches of awesome moments kind of interspersed with patches of long periods of nothing happening. This was a weird race, man. Byron gets by Elliott for fourth, and Denny Hamlin wins stage number 2. And with the points that they earned in stage 2, Truex and Hamlin locked themselves into the round of 8 on points, which leaves 4 spots to be determined in the final stage, which was 107 laps. Of course, everyone comes in for service, obviously. Hamlin wins the race off pit road. Hamlin leads the start of stage number 3. Truex starts challenging Hamlin for the race lead, but is not able to get around him. Got 2x2 for 4th and 6th, respectively. Blaney gets by Truex for second. At this point, you have Hamlin, Blaney, Kyle Busch, and Truex all within a second of the race lead, which was pretty awesome at this point in the race. So the beginning of the stages and the restarts seem to keep everyone kind of clustered together for a while, but then it all seems to kind of stretch apart. Kyle Busch gets by Blaney for second on lap 193. Keselowski was really struggling at this point back in the pack and was only 2 points ahead of Elliott on lap 195, which was big considering Keselowski came in 20 points ahead of Elliott. Kyle Larson gets back into the top 5 on lap 205. Hamlin has a 2.6 second lead over Kyle Busch. Truex, Byron, and Larson start fighting hard for 4th. Kevin Harvick kicks off the final round of green flag stops on lap 215. Hamlin pits from the lead on lap 219, and he cycles back with the lead and puts Keselowski a lap down, so that was big trouble for Keselowski. However, after the green flag pit stops, the next position in front of Elliott was like 4 seconds ahead, and the nearest position behind him was like 4 seconds back as well. So he was basically on an island by himself. So if the race went green all the way to the finish, then Keselowski was going to have it made into the round of 8. Eric Jones starts catching Blaney for third on lap 240. Kyle Busch gets within 7/10 of Denny Hamlin for the lead with 20 laps to go. Blaney scrapes the wall in turn number 4, which leads to our third caution on lap 252. He loses the right rear tire, and bits and pieces of it shred out onto the racetrack. A lot of people were like, well, it was on the apron. Why did they throw the caution? Well, some of that debris might have made its way onto the racetrack. I don't know. But cue the conspiracy theorists who said, well, NASCAR threw that caution, to help Chase Elliott out. Yeah, okay. About sick and tired of that shit. Everyone comes in for service. Hamlin wins the race off with 2 tires, and he leads on the restart with 9 laps remaining. He's able to hold the lead. The 42 and 20 get together and nearly lose it, allowing Elliott to pass them both, which puts him even with Keselowski for the final spot in the round of 8. And the tiebreaker for each of the rounds is if there's a tie on points, then the position goes to the driver with the best finish in that particular round, in which case the tiebreaker would have gone to Chase Elliott. And he gets by Kyle Busch for second, and it's like, oh shit, he's going for the win right here. But then we get our 4th caution on lap 263 when Bubba Wallace's left rear wheel comes completely off the car, causing him to spin, and he also collects the 36th of Matt Tifft. Both drivers were okay though. And we're going into overtime, boys, with the final spot in the round of 8 on the line. So Hamlin leads on the overtime restart, but then another controversial point came on lap 269, our 4th and final caution of the day. Suarez gets into Keselowski and spins out and collects Daniel Hemrick. Logano gets shoved into the grass by Austin Dillon and gets damage to his car, and he was actually sent spinning. And there was actually some significant damage to Logano's car. So that was quite the holy shit moment. And there were actually a lot of people who were like, well, Hamlin took the white flag, though. You know, because the caution came out and they thought that, well, Hamlin took the white flag, so the race should be over, and Keselowski should still be moving on to the round of 8. Nope. Because they actually showed up a video. They actually had a camera positioned at the start-finish line, and it clearly showed that the caution lights came on before Hamlin got to the start-finish line. And there were some people that were like, well, the caution lights don't matter. The fuck they don't. When those caution lights come on, the field is frozen and it's under caution. And Hamlin did not take the white flag before the caution came out. It was very close. I was just like, holy shit. So now we go to a second overtime, and Keselowski loses a lot of positions on this restart, and it's like, oh my god, you know, he's not going to make it. In the meantime, Hamlin manages to hold Elliott and Kyle Busch at bay and wins the Hollywood Casino 400. He led 153 of the race's 277 laps. Basically took the lead and didn't look back. And really made the latter portion of this race really suck ass. But Chase Elliott finishes second and advances to the round of 8 once again. And this despite the fact that he was 20 points out coming into Kansas. And he points his way in. That's insane. So the 4 drivers eliminated from the playoffs: Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman, William Byron, and Clint Bowyer. Keselowski definitely the more surprising one, but I mean, let's be honest, people. I know there's some conspiracy theorists out there like, well, they did everything they could, you know, to get Chase Elliott into the playoff. Well, you know what? Keselowski and his team shouldn't have put themselves in that position to begin with. I mean, if they were championship contenders like they should have been, then why the fuck were they languishing in the midfield, struggling to make up any positions whatsoever? I mean, I think they finished 19th in the race, and by their standards, that is a pretty piss-poor performance. I mean, how do you expect us to believe that you would contend for the championship when you have a piss-poor running like that at a track that he won at back in May? That's the other crazy thing. He won the May edition of the Kansas race, beating out Alex Bowman for that win. And we come here to, you know, the fall edition, and he's a non-factor. And not only is he a non-factor, he's barely inside the top 20. I mean, when you run that badly, I mean, you only have yourselves to blame for getting put into that position. I mean, if he was running better than that, then the whole, you know, NASCAR trying to help Chase thing wouldn't even be an issue. So Keselowski put himself in that position, and his team put him in that position to where, you know, they weren't running well and they ended up missing the playoff. So, don't know really what to tell you on that one. But, anywho, so your top 10 finishers for the Hollywood Casino 400. Denny Hamlin, of course, with his 36th career win, his 5th of the season, which definitely puts him into prime championship contention. Chase Elliott comes home in 2nd, Kyle Busch in 3rd, Kurt Busch comes home in 4th. Man, we didn't really talk about him pretty much all race long, and he comes home in a quiet 4th position. William Byron with a 5th place run, so it was a good run for him, just not quite good enough to advance in the playoff. Martin Truex Jr. comes home in 6th, Eric Jones 7th, Clint Bowyer 8th, Kevin Harvick 9th, and Jimmy Johnson rounds out the top 10. How about Ryan Preece in 12th position after the shenanigans with his team's hauler coming to the race? Chris Buescher in 13th, not bad. But Kyle Larson leading a lot early in the race and then just fell off the map. That's pretty much been his entire season, with the exception of Dover. Alright, so here were the point standings for the round of 12. prepare your anuses for this one. So you should see the results for the round of 12 on your screen right now. We had 3 different winners for this round. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, and Ryan Blaney. They all managed to advance to the round of 8 based on their race victories. Martin Truex Jr. advanced on points after the second stage. And then you have Kyle Busch advancing on points, as well as Kevin Harvick. Joey Logano was involved in that late race accident, but manages to advance in 7th position by 9 points. That's why that stage victory was so important, because he picked up 10 valuable points. And without those 10 points, I mean, before that caution came out, he was languishing back in around 18th position. Without that stage win, he's not in the round of 8. Brad Keselowski is. And then Chase Elliott gets the final spot in the round of 8 over Brad Keselowski by 3 lousy points. And this is where Chase Elliott's victory at Charlotte comes into play, because that victory gave him 5 playoff points. Yeah, without those playoff points that carry through the playoff, Keselowski is in and Chase Elliott is out. That's how big that victory at Charlotte was for Chase Elliott. It gave him the necessary points to overtake Brad Keselowski here at Kansas. Kind of crazy. So now with the round of 8 looming at Martinsville, this is what the points are going to look like, with the points now reset and playoff points accumulated through each of the rounds now applied. So here's what the points look like entering Martinsville. Kyle Busch goes back up to the number 1 seed. Martin Truex Jr. is second, only 4 points back. Denny Hamlin is now third, just 9 points back. And then you have Joey Logano in the number 4 spot at 30 points. And then you have Kevin Harvick in the 5th position, 2 points out. Chase Elliott, 6 points out. Kyle Larson, 19 out. Ryan Blaney, 21 out. But don't forget, a victory is an automatic advancement. And victories at this point, oh, they're going to be all important. Because a victory now will get you to the championship race. So that's going to be all important from this point forward. And they got 3 more races to get it done. So pretty crazy. As for my final rating for this race, this was a very, very weird race. Because there were points in this race that were just awesome. And then there were other points in this race where it felt like I was being put to sleep. But the finish of this race was definitely interesting with all the playoff shenanigans, even though I'm not a fan of the playoff whatsoever. But, you know, it is what it is at this point. But my final rating for the Hollywood Casino 400, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible either. It was kind of in the middle. I mean, we had 5 pure lead changes, and we probably would have had more if Denny Hamlin didn't decide to stink up the rest of the show. But the finish to the race was still pretty good. The beginning of the race was pretty damn good. So, yeah, I think this race falls somewhere in the middle. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Kind of plateau it. And that's pretty much going to do it. We are in the home stretch of the season, my friends. 4 races to go. Like I said, I'll be glad when this friggin' season's over. It is time for a break. It's not going to be much of a break because it's only like 2 months. But that's pretty much going to do it. About an hour long this episode was. I told you it was going to be a jam-packed episode. And I certainly proved it here. Next week is Martinsville. It'll be interesting to see how that race turns out, especially considering what happened last year. But thank you very much for watching. This has been The Fuel, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. See ya! Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on YouTube.com and over on BitChute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan, signing out. Have a good one.